Hi, ballet history class. My name is Maddie, and I will be presenting on Margot Fonteyn. So, Margot was a English ballerina born on May 18th, 1919, in Surrey, England. Her full name was Margaret Evelyn Hookham before she married. She started dancing when she was about 4, and when her family moved to Shanghai when she was about 8, she continued dancing there. Eventually, her and her mom moved back to London so she could pursue more dance lessons. She started dancing at the Sadler's Wells Ballet Company in London in 1935 at 16 years old. She worked a lot with Frederick Ashton. They butted heads at first, but then they became a really good duo, and they became an inspiration for each other. So the Sadler's Wells Ballet Company became the Royal Ballet Company in 1956. While she was there, she performed roles such as Sleeping Beauty, Giselle, Ondine, Swan Lake, and George Balanchine's Imperial, and many others. So that is Margot as a young child and Margot dancing with the Sadler's Wells Ballet Company in those photos. So this is a video from a documentary about Margot's life. So I'm just going to show you a small excerpt in which Ninette de Valois, she was the director of the Sadler's Wells Ballet Company. She talks about Margot's early years with the company. Let's see. I'm not sure if it's going to load, so I will just include it in the comments. Anyways, so her career with the Royal Ballet, the Sadler's Wells Ballet Company had been doing traveling shows during World War II. But then eventually, after the war, the company settled at the Royal Opera House. And then later, in 1955, Margot got married to Tito de Arias and became Margot Fonteyn de Arias. They were married February 6th in Paris. Margot was still dancing at the age of 42, but she was about to retire. But then she met Rudolf Nureyev in 1961, and they became dancing partners for the next 17 years until her retirement. And Rudolf, he defected from the Kirov and kind of almost fled to England. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about Margot and Rudolph, and they danced very well together despite their 19-year age difference. They performed in roles such as Swan Lake and Giselle. And I wanted to show you 2 clips from them, but I'm not sure if they're going to load, so I will just talk about them a little bit. So critics say that they were 2 stars of equal talent and drive, and that they both pushed each other to perform at their best. And let's see. So this first clip is a clip of Margot and Nureyev performing a pas de deux in Giselle. So I found this on YouTube, and it's a recording from 1965. It was taken on tour in Australia with the Australian Ballet. Again, it's not going to load, so I'll just include the video link somewhere else. But in this clip, I wanted to talk about. So it's from the first, Act 1 of Giselle, and in which Giselle and the dude from Giselle, what's his name? I forget his name, but they dance a pas de deux, and this clip really shows Margot's, her lightness and her kind of versatility, and she's really light on her feet. This takes a lot of fast footwork and stuff like that, so which is one of the things she was known for, which I will talk about later. So moving on to the next clip, which also won't play, but that's all right. So this is also from Giselle, but it's from the second act after Giselle has transformed into a Willy, and it's a BBC studio recording made in 1962. And I chose these two clips because it shows Giselle in the first half and Giselle in the second half, both portrayed by Margot Fonteyn. And in the second act, her Giselle's like demeanor is much more sad and kind of melancholy. And in the beginning, the role requires Margot to perform this very kind of happy pas de deux, and in the second half, it's very sad, and her movements are kind of like they have more emotion. So it just kind of, I liked these two clips because it really showed her versatility as a dancer and how she could perform in those very upbeat and lively roles, but also those kind of sad and more emotional roles as well. So it won't play, but that's okay. So Margot was known for her light and graceful technique, her ability to perform fast or difficult choreography with ease. She was known for her versatility and her stage presence. She had an expressive face and arms, which she was often noted for. Her stage presence was known for being particularly emotionally provoking to the audience. A lot of critics and like her colleagues and stuff say that they couldn't really put a finger on what it was about Margot and why everybody loved her. They just did. She was also very dedicated, and she retired when she was 60, and she was having trouble with arthritis by then. And she says, she remarked in the documentary about herself that I showed earlier, that she was anxious in her older age that if she stopped dancing challenging roles, her stamina would gradually slip farther and farther away. So she kept dancing all the way up until she was 60. So this shows the amount of perseverance and drive she had. And she also remarked about herself that she never really knew who she was unless she was on stage. And this was the place she felt most comfortable and where she knew exactly who she was as a person. She also had a lot of musicality, and she was able to stay on time and fill the music when she was dancing, which is really important for a dancer. So this is a quote from the New York Times, and it says, in those later years, she brought to the forefront of her deepest gifts as a dancer her ability to be entirely still. This is where her submission came in as her greatest power. The eloquent French ballerina Violette Verdi explains, waiting in the music, she would fill her ears and her heart with it. To witness such composure and brimming life in a state of utter calm is a movement like no other, reserved only for the truly great dancer. So that just kind of shows like her ability to have that kind of musicality. So I also wanted to point out that her role within the Royal Ballet, because the Sadler's Wells Ballet Company, which she danced with when from the time she was 16 all the way up until her retirement, and it eventually became the Royal Ballet. And she actually did a lot to help them gain fame and recognition in their early years. And her establishment as a dancer prior to the institution of the Royal Ballet and her commitment to them her entire career helped them get off the ground. And she had different renditions of classical ballets like Sleeping Beauty and Swan Lake that gave a new and interesting spin that audience hadn't seen yet. And then especially her interpretation and execution of Aurora in Sleeping Beauty is considered to this day to be one of the best. So that was like one of her contributions to ballet as we know it today, was her contribution to help the Royal Ballet really like become a statement and become influential in the world. So some of her like accomplishments after she retired, even after she retired, she still had influence. She received an invitation after her retirement to become chancellor of the University of Durham in England. She received awards for her contributions to the dance community and her amazing performances, one of them being granted the Dame of the Order of the British Empire in 1956. She also received the Shakespeare Prize in 1977. So that Dame Margot Fonteyn, she was referred to as that for like the rest of her life, basically. And that was a big deal back then. So Robert Helpman, one of Margot's dance partners, describes Margot as being very dedicated. And he said in the documentary, "It was the first time I had seen her all nervous. And I said, 'Now you mustn't be nervous. This is very important.' And she said, 'I'm not nervous for me. I'm nervous for the reputation of the British Ballet.'" So that just kind of shows that her dedication to the British Ballet there. And that is Margot Fonteyn.